Organization national poll on domestic violence taken in 2006, 74% of Americans personally know someone who's been a victim of domestic violence. Everyone in this room is a member of that 74% because you know me. 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence sometime in their life. If 15 years ago someone had come up to me and said, hey, Carma, you're going to be a member of that 1 in 4, you're going to be a part of that 25%, I would have said, you're crazy. I'm smart, I'm well educated, I'm independent, I would never attract such a man into my life. But I did. And I married him. And I stayed married to him for 12 years. Today, what I would like to do is share with you a little bit of my story in the hope of inspiring and motivating you to take one of 3 possible actions. The first would be if you know someone who you think might even be close to being in such a relationship where domestic violence may take place, don't hold your tongue, speak up. And I will go into a little more detail about what I suggest there. The second action is if you find yourself in such a relationship, if your partner in life lays a hand on you, run, do not walk, get away from that person, do not look back. And 3, if you are blessed to be in neither of these situations, support an organization that helps reduce domestic violence. So point 1, don't hold your tongue. Now, an interesting thing happened about a year ago when I announced to my friends and family that I was getting a divorce. Everyone, hands down, 100% said, finally, we always knew he was wrong for you. And I was like, what? A friend of mine who knew me when I first met him said, you know, I thought he was a little controlling, but I didn't want to say anything. My entire father's side out of my family was like, oh my God, we did not like him, we wanted him out of your life. And yet for 12 years, they all held their tongue. The only people who told me they wanted me out of that relationship was my mom, her brother, and his wife. And they did it in a belligerent way that made me wrong, made me bad. And the thing is, if all those people I knew had with love and respect said, you know what, I think there might be something wrong with your relationship, are you sure you want to be there? I might not have stayed 12 years. 12 years of my life living with a man who berated me and talked down to me and told me I was wrong in everything I had an opinion about, almost on a daily basis. And I would have probably left sooner if people had just spoken up. Now, true, speaking up can be hard. I've heard stories of people who told their friends, hey, you know, I'm not sure your relationship's right, and they lost that friendship. But think of it this way. If you hold your tongue and your friend gets hurt, aren't you going to feel guilty that maybe you could have prevented that? And think of it this way. If you don't hold your tongue, there are 2 things that can happen. Actually, there's 3 things. 1, you know what, you're right, I'll get out of that relationship. Most likely, that's not going to happen. If my friends had told me at first, I still would have married the man. I was head over heels in love with the guy. A second thing could happen is they'll go, okay, I respect your opinion, I don't agree with you. Or they could stop being your friend. But the thing is, you need to stand in your integrity. And you need to speak your mind. But what I recommend is do it with love and respect for that person. Don't make it about that person being wrong. That's what my mother and my aunt and uncle did. They made me wrong for wanting to be in this relationship. So of course I stood up for him. He's my man, I'm standing up for him. I protected him, even when he hit me. No one knew he hit me, because I held my tongue. So, don't hold your tongue. Tell people, just do it with a place of love, and respect for that person's decision. Don't make it about them being wrong, just make it about you speaking your mind and respecting their decision. Action number 2. Let's say you find yourself in a relationship with a person who hits you. Now, my personal story, my husband hit me for the first time within the first few months of our marriage. It shocked me. I didn't know what to do, but I didn't think about it, so I continued being married to him. The worst time, actually there was another time he hit me so hard with his hand, there was a handprint on my thigh for a week. A bruise in the shape of a handprint. And it was summer, so I couldn't wear shorts. But the worst time, a time that I actually have a permanent scar on my left ankle. We had just moved to Phoenix. And when we moved, we always argued because I have too much stuff, I do this, I do that, blah, 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 blah. And I have this thing, I like to speak my mind. No matter how hard I tried not to speak up, to just let him go on his little monologue, which is what he did, I could not speak up. So I was talking back, and he took his shoe and he hit me on my ankle. That bruise was so deep it didn't show up for 3 days. And I had to go and get 2, not 1, but 2 rounds of antibiotics because it got so infected that I couldn't walk for a month. And I was melting ice. I had to keep my leg above my heart or I would be in excruciating pain. And yet, I stayed with him. And I didn't tell anyone because I didn't feel safe to tell anyone. I didn't know that people had my back because they held their tongue. And the thing is, about half of female victims of intimate violence report an injury of some type. And 20% of them will seek medical help. So again, if you are in a situation where your partner hits you, run, do not walk, do not give that person a second chance because you know what? Your dynamic with that person is broken. It will never get better. If that person wants a second chance, they can have it with someone else because it will never get better with you. Yes, that was the last time he hit me, and we stayed married for a long time. But it escalated in other ways. By the time I asked for a divorce, he was yelling at me on a daily basis. A daily basis. It never got better. And true, my story is tame. I mean, there are stories of women who died because they stayed in a relationship. So part of the reason why I never came out and told people my story was because, well, you know, it's not that big of a deal. But you know what? It is. Adults don't hit each other. A friend of mine once said that. And it's true. The only time adults hit each other is when they're in a ring and being paid to do it, or they're in a war. And people who love you, they don't hit you. They may go, you know, teasing, slaps, that's something different, but they don't hit you. So if your loved one hits you, walk away. And know that there are people out there who will support you. And more than likely, you have a few friends who held their tongue. The third action, if you are blessed enough to not know anyone in this situation, if you are blessed enough to not be in this situation, I suggest you support organizations that help reduce domestic violence. On each of these tables, I've put a list of organizations that happen to be in Long Beach that work against domestic violence in some ways. And there's all different kinds of domestic violence. In this particular presentation, I'm focusing on intimate partner domestic violence. But there's violence against children. And just another piece of information, men can be victims of domestic violence too, although they only make up about 15% of the overall intimate partner violence. And another thing I want you to take away from my story is that women of all races are equally apt to find themselves in a situation like I was. The color of your skin does not protect you. Your education could protect you. There is a higher rate of domestic violence with less educated and less financially secure people, but I make good money. I'm well educated, and yet I still attracted a man into my life who hit me. So you need to be vigilant. You need to be watching out for these things. Now, from what I've learned over time, there are warning signs that someone may become the kind of person who will hit you. One is that they are controlling. They like to control your life. In fact, my husband made very sure that I didn't have friends outside of the marriage. But he did it in this really insidious way that made it sound like, I support you having friends. I just don't like that friend. I don't want you to be friends with that person. That person isn't right for you. And every friendship I made, he would find something wrong with it. Now, to be honest, he felt the same way about his own friends. He had no friends outside of me. Poor guy. So, I mean, and I'll admit, people who are a victim of domestic violence often feel bad for the person who hurt them. I mean, on some level, I still love my ex-husband. There's no way in hell you'll get me to get married to him again. I don't want to be in the same room with him again. We can't have a conversation without arguing. But I care about him. I don't wish him ill. So, don't let domestic violence become a part of your life. Be a part of the change. Be a part of what makes life better on this planet. Because I truly believe from my personal experience that if more people would support their friends with honesty, love, and respect, if more people knew that they could leave that bad relationship without being ostracized or thought too bad, that domestic violence overall would be reduced. And the thing is, not all people who are the perpetrators of domestic violence are irredeemable. There are programs that can help a person who hits other people get better. That said, don't go back to that person because, like I said before, your dynamic together is broken. I don't think my husband hit his first wife, and he probably won't hit his next. But our dynamic was broken. Something happened in our dynamic that made him that person and made me the person who allowed him to do that. I've pretty much said what I wanted to say. But again, let me go over it again. Number one, don't hold your tongue. Speak up. And it's really important that you do it with love and respect. And what I'm meaning by that, number one, come from a place of I love you as you are, whatever your decisions are. And respect meaning if you decide to be an idiot and stay in that relationship, I'm going to love you anyway. Just don't use those words. I really think that if my mother and my aunt and uncle had not been so belligerent about it, I would have felt safer to say, you know what, he did hit me the other day. And then they would have given me the support I needed, and I probably would have left after 3 years. I would look back at my diaries, and I already was thinking about divorce after 3 years. We were married for 12, almost 13. So, I understand. Well, actually, I don't understand. I don't understand why I stayed that long. And I don't understand why other women stay that long. Now that I'm out of that situation, I think, what the hell was I thinking? And all I can say is there was something about our dynamic that made me stop being me. Because I'm sure that there are a few people in this room who know me well enough to think, Carma would put up with that? I can be feisty. But there was something about that relationship where I wasn't. So don't hold your tongue. Get out while the getting's good. And support the organizations that help. In fact, the bottom of that sheet of paper, there's an event that's taking place. I'm actually helping that. She's one of my clients. She's doing this event. She's a fitness guru type person who was a victim of domestic violence herself, and she's doing this gala that is going to teach people to better themselves and supports one of the organizations that supports domestic violence, which is why I included that. And in a way, working with her is what gave me the courage to realize that I had a lesson to learn. And by sweeping my story under the table, I was not learning that lesson. And so I thank you for helping me have a venue to learn my lesson, own it, and move on and never go